Hello and welcome to the WNBA preview edition of the Super Show, not the CBB Super Show. I know it's been a while since you've seen my face on the camera here. Taking a little break, grew my beard out, Now, of course, I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka WS85, and I'm joined, as always, by Pete Cole. Couldn't be a Super Show, couldn't call it that without my partner in crime, Pete. He's taking no time off. He went right out of college basketball into MLB, grinding every day, making you guys lots of money. We love him for that. I had to take a mental break there for a couple of weeks because, the grind has been long. It was WNBA, TBT, college football, college basketball into this. So now we're back into WNBA, going to preview each team for you tonight, give you some plays, talk about any, additions that teams have made, any subtractions, team players that left. There's been some trades, some fairly big players, free agency, draft picks, stuff like that, and who you might want to pay attention to for DFS. WNBA is one of those niche sports that typically is pretty profitable. So if you grind it with us, I guarantee you'll have fun at it and you'll make some money. Pete, it's been a while since I've been on these with you, man. You're grinding away. You're doing your thing. You're the hostess with the mostest. How you been?
Yeah, and I'm doing well, and I do like the beard growing out. I didn't realize it got that long. So it's only been a few weeks. I was thinking about that earlier because, like you said, you took a break, and it's true because we started with college football like in August, and especially you were running 2 or 3 articles a day. College football went right into college hoops, and we had bowl season. So I kind of envy you now because it's been a long grind. MLB's been good. We have our show every night, 6 p.m. It's been good. So I'm really looking forward actually to WNBA, something a little bit different to kind of break up the monotony. MLB's been crazy this year, variant. So last couple of years, WNBA has actually been kind of a cash cow for us. And I remember Price Picks last year too, which we'll hit Price Picks. You definitely won your articles. I remember that was really well for us. So take advantage of this, our niche sports here. $35 a month, first 6 months for all new subscribers. We'll get that out of the way. Also, before I forget, get all the housekeeping out. Tomorrow night on our MLB pre-lock live show, we're going to give away a free month of your Fielder's Choice. I'm not sure how we're going to choose it, but someone on the show in the chat is going to win it. So tomorrow's Freebie Friday. We're going to try to do something every week. So just something a little bit different, give back to all the customers, people have been watching the show. But it's good to be back with the Super Show. So we can, as soon as WNBA starts, next week? So
May 14th, I think, is the first set of games.
Maybe we can double team some MLB and WNBA on nights we have, games going at the same time. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, definitely back on the grind. And I'm pretty sure DraftKings, I'm not sure about FanDuel, but DraftKings will have some probably, multiple thousand, maybe 1K, 2K to first GPPs and some other stuff. So those people that, they need to see those big prize pools up top before they want to play, they'll definitely be there because they invested a lot of time into their product last year. So we're going to do this team by team. If anybody's watching live and you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask those. I'm sure there won't be, but just in case, definitely we'll interact with you. But we're going to just, start at the top, talk about Atlanta Dream and work our way down from there. And like I said, talk about returning players that, we want to highlight, any draft picks who, may get playing time right away, anybody who's left the team that it might affect them. So, and Pete will jump in with a few players that, he's got his eye on as well. So I do want to start with the Atlanta Dream. There's a lot going on for the Atlanta Dream. Their head coach, Nikki Collette, she just took the Baylor head coaching job like Monday, which is fairly unusual to see a coach this close to the season leave. And it just shows you that the WNBA, while popularity is on the rise, I think the WNBA draft was the highest ratings it's had in history. Lots of people interested in it. I like it. Lots of people do. But, this college ranks are still paying more for coaching. And you see that with Nikki leaving with the season in the middle of training camp to Baylor. So, you can't fault her for it. It's money. It's her dream. Got to do what you got to do, but it does suck for the players. I know they were all shocked. So they have promoted their assistant, Mike Peterson, to interim coach for now. So they will be rolling with the interim head coach. That can sometimes be hit or miss in all sports, So that'll be interesting to see how they kind of, come back from that, because the Dream have a lot of like me first type of players, a lot of ball dominant players. This new coach is going to have to, figure out how to get everybody the ball. They do have a new GM, a new president, a new owner. Everything's different from the Dream. Their new ownership group is headlined by Renee Montgomery, who's a former player of the Dream. There was some racism and other stuff with the previous ownership group. They got them all out there. So everything's a fresh start for the Dream, and they all got pretty high hopes. Number one, first starting is Tiffany Hayes. She opted out last year. She's the big star of the team. She will be back now. She's been with the team since 2012. Her last season that she played in 2019, she averaged 15 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. She was an all WNBA performer in 2018, though, and that was next to Angel McCautry, who was on the Aces. We'll talk about her later. So she had a Robin to her Batman, and she played very well. Her stats took a little bit of a hit with in 2019. There was really nobody else with her that could score, consistently. So her numbers did take a hit, but she's going to be coming to a Dream team that has a lot of good players that weren't around when she was last on the team. Kennedy Carter, their solid rookie from last year, she'll be back. She averaged 17.4 points per game in her rookie season. It's going to be weird, though, because, again, this is a ball-dominant player. I would imagine her scoring is going to take a dip with the return of Tiffany Hayes. And then, of course, they have Courtney Williams. She was added from the Sun last year. She had career highs in points, 14.6, and rebounds, 7.2, which 5.3 of that was on the defensive side. So there's going to be an adjustment period for her, too, because she can be a bit of a ball-dominant guard, too. But she is okay with, other people shooting because she can affect the game in other ways. And then they drafted Ari McDonald, who – big star from Arizona, drafted number 3 overall. She led Arizona to the title game and upset UConn, which was a big deal. Eventually lost to Stanford, conference vote in the title game. But it was a big deal that this Arizona team made it. And it got McDonald from, being a late first, early second to, top 3. Again, another kind of ball dominant player. So she's the rookie. So she's kind of the lower man on the totem pole. But it'll be interesting to see how they kind of, bring her in because her defense is high level. She did average over 20 points per game all 3 years at Arizona and 4.5 assists per game, and then a couple of steals. So, and then they also added a couple of other players here. Cheyenne Parker from Chicago, so a big forward that they're injecting into their front court. She had career highs last year in points, rebounds, and assists. She also shot 47% from long range, so kind of a wing big that can shoot from long range. They're adding Odyssey Sims from the Lynx, another guard. She's kind of more of like that mother figure or leader figure. She does have career numbers of 13 points and 4 assists, but she's obviously not going to be looking to score much with all these other. I think she's going to be really kind of like a player coach type of thing where she's going to help, everybody kind of, hey, you're going to get your touches here and here, whatever. So she might not be as much of a DFS option unless somebody gets injured. And then they've added players like Tiana Hawkins from the Mystics, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough from the Mercury, both probably role players, but names to know because this Dream roster is so deep, but it's going to be the first couple of weeks. They're probably going to be playing with different rotations. You want to know these names. Other players that are returning: Elizabeth Williams, who averaged 10 and 5 last year; Monique Billings, who averaged 8 and 8; and Shakina Strickland, who's a 3-point shooter off the bench, kind of a role player. They did lose Betnaya Laney, who averaged 17 points per game last year. She's now with New York, so they do take out a ball dominant player in Laney, but they just filled that spot back up with 2 more players who are ball dominant. So it's really going to be interesting to see, between Hayes, Carter, Courtney Williams, and McDonald, how they figure that out and still get Parker the ball because they paid, Chicago didn't want to let her go. They couldn't afford it. The Dream paid her, a nice salary, priced Chicago out of re-signing her. So, they're not just giving her that money to bring her off the bench. So it really will be interesting to see how this team, there's a lot of high hopes for this team, but for DFS, it could be one of those situations where going to college basketball, Arkansas was so deep to start the year. We may see that here with 9, 10, 11 deep, which is pretty unusual in WNBA, and maybe a little bit difficult at first. So I may tread lightly with this team, but I'm very excited to watch them play because I do think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year when they finished 7 and 15. So what are you thinking about the Dream here, man?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing you're talking is what they're going to do with Parker because and I'm just going to highlight a couple of the main names. The names obviously you've already mentioned, but with Carter and Hayes, they want to get Parker the ball too. They're paying all that money, and Tiffany Hayes, who opted out last year, but I did see though she's obviously playing well. She's preparing. She just had 29 points in the EuroLeague Women's Championship game this month. So it was only a few days ago. So she's obviously ready to roll. She's been in Atlanta her whole career, I believe, right? So yeah, 7 straight double-digit scoring seasons. She's the shit there. And now you got the kid there too, Carter, who is a prolific scorer. And I think Carter's obviously a better player than Crystal Dangerfield, who actually won Rookie of the Year, a higher ceiling, I think. And I think Carter's going to be even with Hayes here. I think Carter's going to be much better this year. You know, she averaged 3.4 assists last year. I could see that going up higher. So those two, Carter and Hayes, I think are going to be kind of a sneaky duo. So they're the two main ones I'd be looking at DFS, and I'm just curious how Parker's going to fit in on all that also. Nobody really found out why Hayes opted out, did they? I mean, I remember when it happened, she just said that she was some personal stuff, right? And I never really remember why she opted out last year.
Yeah, they were able to use like the COVID as a reason, but yeah, I don't know if it was something else because John, like a few other players opted out that were big too. And she just was. She stated when she did her interview, she said she was like uncomfortable with the day to day and her family and stuff. So there might have been something else besides that, but that's what she cited at least. But yeah, their lineup, their opening night, lineup could potentially be like Tiffany Hayes, Kennedy Carter, Courtney Williams, and then probably, Cheyenne Parker. And then I would guess maybe, Mo Billings or Liz Willie. So they're super deep. It's going to be nuts. And we didn't even mention the Kalani Brown, who averaged 15.8 in college. She hasn't really done much her first 2 years. She played with LA her first year, and then she was on the Dream last year. But she's a massive, tall, bulkier girl who can do damage down low. And I really think that if they find a way to get her minutes, she could do some damage too. So this team is super loaded and protected from injury, that's for sure, because they were a little light on depth last season. So
Odyssey Sims too just adds to that depth.
Yeah, it's crazy. They have so many guards. So we'll see. We might have to take that as a wait and see on them at first. Maybe some GPP stuff, and then see how because I use Arkansas because remember we had to avoid them for the first month because they were playing 12 guys, and then as the season went on, they shortened it down to like an 8-9 man rotation, and they became really good. And I think that'll probably be the case with them. So moving on, next team, Chicago Sky. We were just talking about Parker. We're going to be talking about another one. They were 12-10 last year. They had a lot of depth issues. My girl, Diamond DeShields, who I love, she had injuries all season long. She could only really play in 13 games because of it. And there's a really good chance that people will just look at last year and see she only averaged 6.8 points per game, shot a career worst from long range, like 18% or something like that. But she wasn't healthy the whole time. Now, if you look back at her prior 2 years, she averaged 16.2 points per game and 14.4, and that was when she was fully healthy in her 2 previous years. So I would expect her to be a much bigger factor. Now she's going to be playing next to Candace Parker, who they've added in free agency, the Chicago native, Candace Parker. She's been in the league for 13, 14 years, spent all those seasons in LA. Derek Fisher, the coach of LA, and her, clashed and kind of butted heads a lot. So she's over to Chicago now to probably end her career. 17-9 career averages, gets to play with a point guard like Courtney Vandersloot, best point guard in the league, and a budding star in Diamond DeShields, who I expect, like I said, to be a big factor. The nice thing about DeShields, because she was so bad last year and hurt, DK may have her, super underpriced, like sub 5K, sub 5.5, whatever, and people might say, oh wow, she's so bad, I'm not going to play her. Could be one of those sneakier plays. So definitely keep an eye on her. I mentioned Courtney Vandersloot, one of the best point guards in the world, pretty much. Assist machine, averaged 10-10 last year. Set a a WNBA record for assists in a game with 18 last year. She's on I think she's on Brianna Stewart's EuroLeague team. There's like John Clutch. They're loaded. They have like the 8 best WNBA players on this EuroLeague team, and they just dominate and smash, and they all did well, and they won a title. I think they were even undefeated. So they're all sharp. They don't take these off seasons. They go over and they play in Europe, and sometimes they get hurt because of it. But Courtney looking really good playing next to Brianna Stewart. So now getting to play next to Candace will be big for her too. She, of course, has Allie Quigley there next to her, 40% career 3-point shooter. Quigley's been in the league for so long. This will be her 15th year in the league. So she's drinking from the fountain of youth because she doesn't look like that she's that old. And she actually averaged her second highest amount of points last year at 15.4. So again, the Sky had depth issues, so she had to step up. I think she'll take a step back. Very interested to see about Kalia Copper this year. She did have a breakout season last year, career highs in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, shot almost 50% from the field. Obviously, that a lot of that had to do with Diamond DeShields being out, so it'll be interesting to see how, with Diamond back healthy, how Copper fits in. And then, of course, Azura Stephen, she got hurt last year as well. After only, 12, 13 games, she was averaging career highs of 11 and 6. They paid big money to get her over from Dallas. So they're going to use her next to Candace Parker. Ruthie Hebard, the rookie, was 6 and 4 last year. She did end the season, though, averaging over 20 fantasy points in her last 5. So she's somebody to watch out for. And then Gabby Williams, who was a big time player for them, has been put on the season-long suspended list. She is playing for the French national team. Olympics are still, as of now, on. They're planned. I know there was talk of them being postponed again. So all these, national teams and foreign players are training. So WNBA season will have a break midsummer for the Olympics for a couple weeks. And the players who are opting out now or being put on the suspended list is just basically Chicago's way of keeping her reserved. Will be in the Olympics. So they're not going to have her, which would normally hurt, but not with Candace Parker. So they've also signed Lexi Brown from Minnesota, who's a sneaky ad. And they have players like Jessica January, Astu Endu, and Alexis Prince, who have out the rest of their bench. So really the players here are obviously Vandersloot, Parker, and DeShields, with everybody else being secondary. The pecking order should be a little bit more easier to decipher, and along with Azura Stephen. So what do you think about them adding Candace Parker for Vandersloot? It's a pretty good 1-2 punch, right?
Yeah, and this is where she's from, right? She's from Chicago, if I'm correct, right? That's her hometown. So yeah, what a way to finish out a career in her hometown. This is probably a top 3 team in the WNBA, and now she's gonna make a big difference, especially on the transition with her, with her defensive rebounds and outlet passes. And so I think she's gonna make a big difference. I love this. Both of us are Diamond DeShields fans, especially how she played in 2019. She averaged 16 points, 5 rebounds. The whole year last year, I think she left the bubble early, right? If I remember right. And I really think she could be one of the top players in the league. And she's surrounded by people like Parker and Vandersloot. And you got some really good. This is a really good team. I think that this could be a team that could definitely challenge for the championship. Really, you got the Shields and Copper, and these people are finishers. So I like the Shields a lot, and I really think the Shields could be a top 15 player by the end of the season.
Yeah, and they've been, Chicago's been so close to, making these deep runs, and they've had fantastic regular season teams, and they just kind of gassed out in the playoffs. So adding a player of Candace Parker's caliber with that championship experience is going to be huge for them. And then a healthy Diamond DeShields and Azura Stevens, who I think people are probably going to sleep on. They're much deeper this year. I think they're going to go with an 11 player roster. A lot of them are. There's a lot of talk for expansion because there's a lot of good players out there who can't even make teams because there's not enough spots. So a lot of teams are only going with 11 people this year. So that sounds like what the Sky will do, and they'll probably have like an 8 or 9 person rotation. So definitely a team to watch.
Gabby Williams is out for a while, right? Right though.
Yes, she's on the season-long suspended list. Yeah, because she's going to play on the French national team.
Right. Vandersloot could have very easily been MVP last year. So.
Yeah, that game, I had her in that game when she got the 18 assists. Man, it was amazing. She just continually was dropping dimes everywhere. It's amazing, averaging a double-double is impressive already, but it's usually points and rebounds. When you see somebody average a double-double with assists, that's always more impressive, right? You got to put people in good positions to make shots. And she's certainly one of the best point guards in the league. And having a player like Candace Parker down low that she's going to be able to feed and give bunnies to is going to really rack up her assists for sure.
She was the first WNBA player to ever average 10 assists in a season. I didn't even realize that. And she's a good shooter too. So
yeah, she can hit the 3 when she needs to.
Yep, she could very well have been MVP last year. So,
all right, moving on. Next team here, the Connecticut Sun. They do. You'll see here as I talk about records from last year that the Eastern Conference had a rough go of it, where the Western teams were a lot better. But Connecticut was 10-12 last year. They are going to be without their DFS wrecking ball, Alyssa Thomas, who was a YFC favorite last year. We were constantly coring her, paying the $10K that you needed to for her. She was getting 50 and 60 fantasy points like it was, on the regular. But she does have an Achilles tear. She will miss the season. She's going to be she's going to be on the bench and a coaching role for them, which will help. But that's going to force the Sun to really change their play, because Alyssa was more of a point forward. She could bring the ball up, push the fast breaks, amazing rebounder. So they're really going to miss her. But they do get Jonquel Jones back, who opted. She was a player, one of the star players in the league that opted out last year. So they will be getting her back. She averaged about 15 and 10 in 2019. So expect her numbers to be fairly big without Alyssa around. This will be the first time playing with Dewana Bonner, who they acquired last year. So Bonner and Jones make a very nice kind of yin and yang pairing, where Jonquel's more of a back to the basket type of player. Dewana is kind of she's also a point forward, a lot like Alyssa. Bonner's been in the league a long time. She spent 10 years with the Mercury. She did average almost 20 and 8 last year for the Sun, so immediate factor. So those numbers shouldn't dip because of the fact that Alyssa's gone. Perfect complement. Like I said, they're the P&R game, pick and roll, stuff like that. They should do really well. So I really like that pairing. Their depth has always been an issue. It seems to me like it's going to be an issue again. Looking at their secondary players, they do have a player a couple actually that I think are on breakout list. Brianna Jones was a player we called last year as a breakout, and she did. She averaged career high 11.5 and 5.5 rebounds. Her previous career highs were 3.5 and 2.2. So with Jonquel out, she stepped in and became their starting 4-5 and really did well. And I think she's going to do even better this year, especially with a player like Jonquel commanding all this attention on the block. You should see Brianna get a lot of open looks because she was hitting that mid range all season long. And then Beatrice Mom-Premier, who the coaching staff says is going to be a major factor. She was a rookie last year. Her stats aren't going to knock you out or anything, but she was always 4Xing her. She's like 3.2, 3.5, 4K. And a lot of people didn't use her, and we'd get her at like 5%, 6%. And she would always get, 18, 20 fantasy points and 4X her price tag often off the bench. So with the depth being an issue yet again, I think Mom-Premier is going to be a really big play. The front court for the Sun is really strong, where the guard play might be a little more lacking. They do return Jasmine Thomas, Brianne January. Both players are kind of just okay. Jasmine Thomas has had good seasons in the past, but she really hasn't been a consistent DFS option, and Brianne in January is more of a role player. They do have some other options, Natalie Heidemann, their rookie, I think Leah Goodman, who from Oregon State, they brought in a big 3-point shooter. So there's some pieces here that are going to get an opportunity to be helpful off the bench, but it's really going to be the Bonner, Jonquel Jones, Brianna Jones show with maybe a little Mom-Premier. This team will be very obvious who you can roster, which is nice because the other teams we just talked about are super deep. So the Sun, what do you think? Without Alyssa Thomas, that might be a rough go for him, but Jonquel kind of cancels that out, I guess.
Yeah, and another player I kind of think maybe sneaky this year, and obviously we got to see how it lands, is Kayla Charles. And
yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, she may be starting at small forward, because she actually, I mean, she was big in the last year when they in the playoffs last year. She really came on, and now with Thomas out, this is gonna be a different team, and she really only dealing with Smalls and Carrington. So I think that she's not gonna be a high volume player, but I think she could be a sneaky player. She's gonna be one of those cheap players that we could, when he's a value spot, we could be using the first couple weeks of the season. So I like Kayla Charles. And then, of course, Jonquel Jones. And I don't even think we've seen how good Jonquel Jones can be. I mean, I was just looking, she hasn't even averaged 16 or more points a game this season. And we saw, and was it 2019 finals, that 32-point, 18 rebound game in game 2. I mean, we saw how good Jones can be when the spotlight's on her. So especially with Thomas out, Jones is going to be the straw that stirs that drink there. And you still got Bonner, who's obviously a really good player, but I think Bonner's going to be really good. Like, she's like 33, 34 years old, and she actually had her second best scoring average of her career last year. So she's obviously getting better with time. She's a really good veteran to have on that team. She's career high 7.8 rebounds, 3 assists, almost 2 steals per contest. So she fits right in there. I mean, top 2 or 3 player. But it's all about Jonquel Jones. I think Jonquel Jones could turn in, honestly, to be the number 1, number 2 player in this league. I mean, she's ready to unseat Brianna Stewart. I think. I mean, you give her another year. We haven't even seen what Jones can do.
Yeah, and she can make threes. She was on Brianna Stewart's EuroLeague team this past spring, winter, whatever, and she's knocking down threes in the videos I was looking at because I'm constantly watching all these highlights of high school kids, college kids, whatever, and I have WNBA and I follow them too. And she looks really good, primed, and playing with Brianna Stewart, obviously going to help her a lot. And the nice thing about the Sun is the last 2 or 3 years that I've been grinding WNBA DFS, they always have this depth issue, which it looks like it's going to happen again. And frequently their players all play, 30, 35, 36, whatever minutes there's really no, they're only off the floor for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. On like Alyssa Thomas, the reason she keeps breaking down, she's playing with 2 torn labrums for like a year and a half, by the way. They just continue to play. They get like 1 water break a game because they just don't have that depth. So they're used to it. And Bonner did that last year. She came over with the Mercury, was used to playing high minutes, and she did that right away. So yeah, John Quell is healthy, ready to go, and it looks like she is. You could be looking at a like you said, an ascension from her playing, every single possible minute in the game and putting up, 40, 50, 60 fantasy points, just like Brianna Stewart. So definitely a good call there, because you could see her 15 and 10 average go to like 18 and 12 or 20 and 14 or something really crazy. All right, moving on to a team that really hasn't impressed. They always come into the season in the Indiana Fever, and WNBA pundits and people on Twitter and social media are always hype about this team because they've got players that should be good and they should play well. They finished 6-16 last season. It was a tough season for them. They had, some injuries, but they've got some solid pieces here that should really do well. In the draft, they did surprisingly, it seemed, maybe overdraft at the 4th spot. I'm gonna struggle with this name here, but I believe I say it, Kisri Gondrazik, out of West Virginia. They took her number 4, so she's gonna play right away. She has a lot of good shooting ability. Should be able to run the point or play the 2 if she has to. So it'll be interesting to see, because a lot of people called her a reach, and she probably was on paper, but she'll have that opportunity to start from day one and really show, the world that she's a good player. So they invested that in her. They are losing Candace Dupree to my Seattle Storm. Dupree's been in the league forever, but that's a lot of experience. She's still a very highly productive player that they're going to have to replace. So it'll be interesting. They did bring in Danielle Robinson from the Aces, a really steady point guard, usually as a second unit player. She averaged 7, 3, and 2 last season, played around 23, 24 minutes a game. So nothing super exciting, but she's one of those players that she's typically, in that price point of 5'4", 5'2", and that's what your salary is left. I really have no issue playing her typically. So it'll be interesting, because I think her role on this Fever team might be bigger than people realize. They also have Jessica Breland, who they brought in. I believe she was on the Dream recently too. 6'2", kind of a bigger forward. She's been in the league for 8 years. And then Julie Allemond, who was a big time player for us. This will be her 2nd year now. Allemond, I like her a lot, man. She averaged about 8.5 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, and 5.8 assists. So none of those are super, gaudy numbers, but look at the constant triple double watch of an 8-5 and 5 type of player. She hit threes with pretty good consistency. So she's one of those players that I think has a lot of room to still grow. Playing next to Danielle Robinson is really going to help her. I hope she doesn't get bumped out of the starting lineup because of it. But being able to learn that position from a veteran like Robinson should really help her. So keep Alleman on your list, because she was never priced high enough last season ever. I think towards the end of the season she got up over 7K, which made her unplayable. But she was riding like that 5-6K line all season long, and people just weren't rostering her, and she kept putting up 30 while only scoring 8 points. So anytime a player can do that without scoring the basketball, I'm all over. They do have Tiffany Mitchell, 12.5 point scorer, and Kelsey Mitchell at 18 points per game. So those are the Mitchells are their big time scorers. Tiara McGowan, man, the coaching staff would always, they would never play her enough. It's like whenever she was one of those players, whenever she would play over 20 minutes, she would smash a slate, put up 30, 40 fantasy points. There'd be some games they would only play her 15 minutes, and of course she didn't pan out. She did average 11 and 7, so she's a constant double watch. Led the team with 22 blocks, big body. I mean, she is a really big force down low. Conditioning was an issue, but I think that she's going to do some things here if they can give her the minutes. Also going to be looking at Lauren Cox. She was a rookie last year. Didn't really contribute all that much, 3 and 3, but she did play, in 14 games. She looks solid. They're expecting her to make a big jump. And then they got rid of Kennedy Burke as well. Jantel Lavender, who didn't play last year. She's a 9-year vet. She's been around the league, somebody that, should contribute right away as well. So it's an interesting lineup. They have a lot of bigs, which they needed to, replace Dupree. It's just really going to be a matter of, that consistent guard play that they haven't had in the past. But Alleman's growing up. They brought in Danielle Robinson as a mentor figure. And then, of course, they have the rookie Kisri Grandisek that, they're expecting big things from. So the Fever come into the season with high hopes yet again. But I don't know, this team, when I look at all the other roster moves that the higher end teams have made, I don't know if this team it still seems like they're probably like 2 seasons away from really, competing, which I know we don't care about that, but if we're going to bet on some of these games or whatever, but as far as, consistent fantasy performances go, who are you looking at here on this team?
Kelsey Mitchell, actually. And Kelsey Mitchell, to me, she's like the Mac McClung of WNBA because
she's got a high usage, definitely.
Yep. And she's going to score, but you're not going to get too much else across that stat sheet, especially if she's not on. But I really think that, she's young. She's only 25 years old. She can definitely become a better all-around player and even a better scorer than she is. So I like her a lot. And I think if they're even going to make a run for the playoffs, which I don't think they're going to because their defense is so bad, it's going to be around her because she's a shooter. She's a gunner. So I like Mitchell. Another one, of course, McGowan. What was McGowan? Her problem is pretty much staying on the court. But if she gets the minutes and she can improve. I don't know, but I'm all about Mitchell, I guess. And Jessica Breland too. She was the one. She was out in chemotherapy last year, right? So she's kind of one of those feel good stories. Like to see her do well. She can put up 10 points a game, I guess. But to me, it all goes around Kelsey Mitchell. I like Mitchell a lot, and I could see her averaging 20 points a game.
Yeah, there's a lot of new pieces for this team, so it'll really be, Jantel Lavender, who didn't play last year either, Breland, and all these different pieces. But yeah, it's a good safe bet to roll out the Kelsey Mitchell because of her high usage. Tiffany, as she contributes. I'm a big Alamon fan, and then if McGowan gets the minutes, she's a slam dunk. I think the Fever players will likely come out really cheap, and you'll be able to get exposure there. And even if they, get their doors blown off, which happened a lot last season, you'll have some good solid fantasy production from a lot of their players. For whatever reason, the coaching staff just wouldn't play Lauren Cox or Tiara consistent minutes. And when they were on the floor, they played well. So hopefully those two get a shot this season.
What about Victoria Vivians? I'm seeing that she may have a bigger role this year. And she only played 2 games last year, right? She had a knee injury.
Yeah, they had a lot of issues with her staying healthy, but she's another one that, out of Mississippi State, they really like her. She's got a lot of athleticism. She's 6'1", so she's a little, taller for her position. And I've heard that too. I'm a little, and she's one that'll come out cheap. The Fever confused me with their roster makeup. It's very odd. So I'm trying to figure out the pieces of, I can't even guess their starting lineup right now. But they've got some interesting pieces. So somebody's going to come out of this group that we don't expect. And really do well. So, But yeah, Vivian's is a good one to keep an eye on because, she wasn't healthy last year. Nobody's probably going to be even thinking about her. This is her second year in the league. I think she played only like 6 games the year prior. Actually, it was 2018. She started 26 games, averaged like 9 points. So she definitely has ability. Just got to get another one. You got to get healthy. Next team, this one is going to be fun to talk about because they've got a lot of new pieces. The New York Liberty, they of course have our girl Sabrina Ionescu. She got hurt early in her career, but you could tell, she was underpriced to start the season, which was nice. Probably won't be this time, although she didn't, play a lot last year because of the injury that she suffered early in the season, which cost her all but 3 games. But in those 3 games, she averaged 18 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, did a little bit of everything for them, shot 35% from long range. She's going to be a big time player. Obviously you can tell that, it used to be worried about a player coming back from a serious injury. But now with, all the medical stuff that they do, you see players bounce back and be just as good, if not better. So I'm looking forward to year 2 of Sabrina healthy. She will have some new pieces around her. The Liberty added Natasha Howard, who I'm very familiar with from her time with the Storm. Natasha Howard is a big time, producer for the Storm. Last year, she played about 21 minutes a game, but when Stewart tore her ACL, I think it was 2 years ago in Europe, Howard stepped up and was the star of the team. She was Defensive Player of the Year. She had a career, I think it was a career high, 18 points per game, 8 rebounds per game. So as the focal point big, she tore it up. Last year, numbers regressed a lot with Stewart back, which is obviously going to happen. She averaged 9 and 7, which is still good numbers. Now she's going to go back to, a semi-alpha role with New York, put up those big numbers. So I'm looking forward to seeing her. They also got Sammy Whitcomb, who's a gunner with the Storm. I don't know what her status is coming from Europe just yet. There's a chance she might not play because I think her wife's either pregnant or they had their kid. So she might not play very much. So I'm not 100% clear on that just yet. And then of course, the other pieces to look at, Asia Durr, Jasmine Jones, who I really like. They did add Betnajai Laney, who I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the dream. Laney averaged 17 points per game. This is going to be her 6th season, still relatively young. She's a gunner. She's like the perfect number 2 guard to have next to a player like Ionescu. She's going to be doing some serious damage with a player of that caliber getting her the ball. So I do like the lineup they have here. Some other players to, take note of, Leona Odom. All these girls are going to be really cheap. Kylie Shook, their draft pick, Dee Dee Richards out of Baylor, Kaya Stokes. So and Jocelyn Willoughby. So all these different players are going to factor in here in one form or fashion. One thing about New York that you guys are going to like, they play a really fast pace. They like to shoot threes. Their coach, Walt Hopkins, he's a big time, believer in we got to take threes, like Nate Oates in Alabama. They want to take all the threes in the world. They want to push the pace. This is going to lead to a lot of fantasy points, a lot of assists, a lot of rebounds, a lot of, 3-pointers. So we're going to want Liberty exposure. And I think they're going to be a lot better than the 2-20 team we saw last year, which you can't hold that against them because they lost Ionescu so early. So yeah, I'm really excited for this team. They left Kia Nurse. Jasmine Jones last year was an 11-point scorer, 4 rebounds. So she's back for year 2. They did lose Amanda Zowie B, but again, they added Natasha Howard. That should be fine. I do expect Willoughby, Stokes, Odom, and Shook to be, to all take pretty good steps forward. They were all about 5-6 point per game scorers last season. Year 2 of this system, I expect, somebody out of that group to come and be a regular fantasy producer for us. It'll really depend on what that starting lineup will look like to start because the pricing on this team is going to be low. I have a really strong feeling. They may gas up Laney because of her stats last year, so maybe she's not in play as much earlier, but a lot of these secondary Liberty players will be. So what are you thinking with the Liberty here? You expecting them to be pretty good for DFS and better overall with Ionescu, assuming she doesn't get hurt again, of course?
Yes, I think that when they gave up that number 1 pick and got Natasha Howard, they pretty much made a statement to the league that they're not going to be a doormat and they're not going to they're ready to win now and they're not waiting. And if Ionescu is healthy, I mean, remember that was it her second game, she had 33 points. I mean, she's a stud. So and then you surround some of these other players with her that is going to make them better, like Laney. I mean, with Laney, all of a sudden, I remember she was always a big defensive player. I think she might have been. I don't know if she's defensive player of the year, but she's like first team and stuff. But all of a sudden now, when you got a point guard like Ionescu feeding you the ball, she's going to be a go-to scorer, Laney. So all this stuff is going to help out. But Ionescu healthy is going to help out Laney. I look at Laney as one of the top players on the team. I mean, of course, Howard, and we all know what Howard can do and what she brings to the team. But Laney, Howard, and Ionescu, I mean, that's a hell of a combination. That was like ranking these teams, and I could see them being like a top 7 team. I'm looking at other places like ESPN has them like 11th. I could definitely see them being a top 17. Put those 3 together. Yeah. And then there was another. Oh man, who's coming back? Rebecca Allen sat out last year. I mean, she was more like a value play, but she didn't play bad in 2019. She averaged 7 points a game. She's been with Liberty, I think, her whole career. Just resigned on Monday, and she could shoot the threes. Something like that. I mean, you need a value play at the end of your lineup, something like Allen. But I'm really excited for betting on Laney. I think Laney's could be really have a big year this year.
Yeah, and they're going to be bringing back also, I believe, Maureen Johannes, who she stayed in Europe last year, but she's a big-time 3-point shooter. She shot like 38% her first season in the WNBA, but she's a sniper over in Europe. She averaged like 7 points per game, but she was another one that was a value play for me 2 seasons ago. She would always be like just above min price, and she would play like 20 minutes a game and do just enough to pay off that salary. So another option in that run and gun offense that should, theoretically do well. So I'm definitely excited for the Liberty. I was excited for them last year, right before Ionescu went down. So their offense is very good for DFS purposes. So
Yes,
definitely a team to watch. All right, Washington Mystics. The Mystics, they got older, they had injuries, they had opt-outs. Latoya Sanders, who's a long time, key cog for them, has retired. I really liked her, but didn't realize she's in her like upper 30s now, so I get it. Big question will be, EDD's health. Deladon, she's been the stud. She's entering her 8th year, so it's not like she's a fogey by any means, but it feels like she's been in the league longer and having some injuries. So really be interesting to see, how she bounces back. I believe they are going to be without the services of Emma Meesman, who has, she typically misses the first part of the season anyways with her obligations in Europe. But with the Olympics on the horizon, they may not even have her for this season. So that's something to keep an eye out. They do lose Ariel Powers, who's a big time wing for them. She's off. So that's going to be, a struggle. But Maisha Hines-Allen really had a breakout season last year, averaged 17 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. She had a bunch of double-doubles. She had a couple games that are on par with Brianna Stewart at times with 40-plus fantasy points. So, as they transition with this kind of newer roster, Deanna Hawkins is gone as well. They've got some younger players. I think Hines-Allen, the torch may be passed to her. But I say that and EDD comes out all healthy and takes over the league and reminds everybody that, I'm still the best damn player in the league. So we could definitely see that. Natasha Cloud, who did opt out of last year, she's back. She's a big time guard for them. This will be her 6th season. I'm really excited about her. She was another player that was in that kind of 6K range that would always produce for us. She averaged 9 points, 6 assists. So she's kind of, a fringe double player. With her back in the lineup, they should be much better. They were, what were they last year? 9-13, so not a typical Mystic season that we're normally accustomed to seeing. They have a Leilani Mitchell from the Mercury. She came on the team 2 years ago. She's, back for another season. And then players like Stella Johnson, who she's going to be in her 2nd year. Sug Sutton, who's in her 2nd year. Some of these younger players who showed flashes at times last season. And then, of course, Tina Charles, who's been in the league for 10 plus years. She opted out last year. She came over from the Liberty. They did go ahead and re-sign her. I was a little shocked. I wasn't sure if they were, because I thought maybe they would look to spend that money elsewhere or try to keep Ariel Powers. But no, they did bring Charles back. Tina Charles is a big time scorer. As you know, anyone who has followed the WNBA or played DFS at all with it knows that she's been, a 30 plus fantasy point scorer for a long time. Her last season in 2019 with the Liberty, she averaged 17 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. She's a career 18-9 type of player. Again, she's been in the league for over a decade, though. She started pretty much every game in her career, I think all but one. She typically plays about 32 minutes a game. So a lot of wear and tear on her. But coming into it fresh this season, she should be a big time player. So her next to EDD and Hines-Allen could potentially be one of the best front courts in the entire league. It's just that, the question marks at guard are pretty much answered with the return of Natasha Cloud and Ariel Atkins. So definitely a complete team if they're healthy. I didn't even mention Kiara Leslie, who was also a 2nd year player, was another one that for like three or 4 game stretch, she was like the best value play of the season. So a lot of moving pieces here for the Mystics, but they got their core group back. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I mean, of course, EDD, and she's not getting any younger. And remember, she's recovering from back surgery also. And I was just reading, she's still limited in practice. So we're not even sure if she's ready for the opener. I'm assuming she's going to play, but Tina Charles, of course, that's only going to help her. I think this fresh start, because I think that was her worst year, like you said, in New York. But man, the 2 people I'm excited about is, and I think they're both, and they're both young, is Ariel Atkins, and I think you'd mentioned we both Maisha Hines-Allen is my favorite player in WNBA. The sky is the limit for her. I really think that she can be a force everywhere. She can score everywhere and she can hit the boards. I like her. I like her a lot. So those two players, I mean, Allen, Allen and Atkins are. You give them another 2 years, they're gonna be, two of the better players in the league. I mean, Atkins she can shoot the three, right? I mean, she might shoot three just as good as anybody else in the league, and she shot 35% from deep. So in 2020, she shot 41.1%, which is even better. So, and they're also good defenders too. So I like Atkins and Hines Allen a lot out of both of them. I think by end of the DFS season, we're going to be playing these guys a lot because they're probably, and both of them are probably going to open up lower. They're not going to be priced up like a EDD or Tina Charles, but definitely type of players you can use in DFS.
Yeah, and Atkins, with Cloud opting out and all the injuries they had, they were really shorthanded last year. So Atkins, she became a high usage player. She had career high in points, 15, career high in assists, career high in rebounds. You had mentioned she's a 41% 3-point shooter last year. So she's a big time scorer. It took a while for me to accept that because I kept missing the boat on it. But yeah, I started to play her and she was rewarding us with 4, 5, 6x games. Definitely somebody to watch for if she's underpriced to start. She's going to be that fifth starter in the backcourt with Natasha Cloud early on. I did read here, Maisha Hines-Allen and Kiara Leslie and Erica McCall have not reported training camp yet just due to overseas commitments. So I do want to mention they'll probably be here in time because they have another week, but there are a lot. I mean, they don't pay these girls enough just yet. And we don't have to get into that, but they play overseas in the off season. So a lot of them are late to training camp or late to the season. So that might affect a few of these players here if they're, as far as gelling with their team. Obviously, it won't affect their conditioning because they're playing anyways. It'll just be a matter of, picking up the Mystics, offense and reintegrating them into the offense with Natasha Cloud and such. So something to pay attention to. Maybe we have some additional value in that first slate if these girls are not ready yet. But I assume they will be. All right, Dallas Wings. This will be one we'll have to take some time to talk about. The Dallas Wings, they had five picks in the first 15 in the draft. They've got some really dangerous players returning. They got really good players in the draft. So this is another team that definitely struggled last season. They're 8-14. It was an improvement from before, but they're really young. They made some really dynamite draft picks. Of course, they return Bella Allery in her second year. She was a nice value play for us. Alicia Gray, she was kind of a gunner. Taisha Harris is in year 2. She was a very nice value play. Marina Mabry, who I'm very high on. She's been working on her game, and she's mostly known as a 3-point shooter, but she's been working on her game in Europe. I read an interview with her today where she's been working on her drives, her passing, pretty much everything. So I'm really high on her. And then, of course, RK Ogunbale. This is her 3rd year. We expect her to start taking that next step into superstardom. She's kind of like in that second or third tier of stars. She's not maybe that recognizable to the casual fan, but she will be soon. And I really do like, what the kind of season we expect for her this year. And she's probably going to be priced really high. And there's a lot of new pieces in here. It's going to be interesting to see how the coach, gets these girls, the ball when they need it and figures it out. Ogunbale was a 23-point game scorer. They have Satu Sabali, who's also got superstar written all over her. She averaged 14 and 8 last year. She's going to make another step up. I already mentioned Mabry, who's a 42% 3-point shooter. Taisha Harris, a lot of people liked her for breakout this year. They did trade Katie Lou Samuelson over to my Storm for a draft pick, so they don't have her anymore, but they've got some really solid pieces. And then you look at what they did in the draft. They brought at number 5, who was my favorite player in the draft heading in, Chelsea Dungy from Arkansas. She figures to play right away, probably off the bench at first. She may be cheap in one of the sneakier plays. She's a scoring machine. At Arkansas, she would light it up. If we would have had women's college basketball for DFS, she would have been a player that we were constantly playing. So I'm really excited for her. They also drafted Charlie Collier, number 1 overall out of Texas. She's a big time 6'5", 188, which is pretty big for a female. So she's going to be, maybe not such a factor right away, but she'll definitely be getting playing time off the bench. Awat Kaur, they got her from Finland. There was talk about her staying overseas. If she comes over, she'll factor in right away. They're bringing back Kayla Thornton, who's a very, productive wing. So there's a lot of good pieces for this squad. And I really like them. definitely. I mean, even Bella, who's in her second year out of Princeton, 6'4", she's really tall. She played well. A lot of people don't realize, but she was a really productive one on the floor and didn't cost them too much, as opposed to when they'd put like Megan Gustafson on the floor and they would give up a lot more defensively. So it's a young team. There's a lot of good players. Obviously, Arake and Satu are probably their top two. They'll have to eat. Their maturation and their growth is going to continue, so they're going to have to nurture them. But they have such good pieces and just straight sick shooters around them. If Arake can talk herself into stop taking bad shots, because she's had to shoulder the load on offense a lot, if she can become a more efficient player and start passing a lot more, I think she'll find that her assist number is going to go sky high. And she's going to start putting up some really ridiculous 50-point games, because she hasn't really been a big, peripheral type of player. Most of her fantasy points come from scoring. She's putting up 30, 35, like a Mac McClung or, Cam Thomas, our boy from LSU. Now, if you add in the, 5-6 assists, a couple of rebounds, and then, 18 to 20 points, she's going to start putting up 40s on the regular. So I'm expecting a lot out of this Wings team. I think they make a big step. It's just going to be a matter of figuring out how the rotation is going to be, because right now on paper, the rotation looks disgustingly large. So, how they're going to integrate those rookies, who's going to be the third option behind Satu and Arake, and, how does Mabry and Taisha Harris, fit in with these new rookies as well as the secondary option. So a lot to internalize here, but another fun team to watch. What are you, I guess, expecting out of this team, and who's your favorite players of the group?
Well, they had a hell of a draft. I mean, I'm not going to repeat everything you said. We all know about Collier, we know how Collier's, but my two favorites would Dungy out of Arkansas.
Yeah, she's sick.
She's an outside shooter. She can spread the floor, which I think is going to help Sabali and Arike. And then there's Dana Evans, who at one point was probably projected as a lottery pick, and she dropped down to the second round for the first pick. And Evans is really quick. She's fast. She's dangerous in transition. She's a 3-point shooter. So Evans could end up being one of the sneaky picks out of this whole draft. I'm assuming she's gonna make the team. I didn't dug that deep into her, but I think that's a kind of a sneaky player there, Dana Evans from Louisville. And then I mean, my favorites are, and we all know about Arike, but I think Sabali is going to be one of the better players in the league. I mean, I think the sky's the limit with her. I mean, she was really well last year in her rookie year, and she can pass, she can finish plays. Average almost 14 points, almost 8 rebounds. So if she can start hitting threes, she's going to be probably one of the biggest matchup problems in WNBA. And then then the other one is Olari. So it's funny because Olari, she's the one from Princeton, right? She's a big time shooter in Princeton. And then she goes to Dallas and she was pretty much bound to the paint. But I'm thinking with this new coach, with Vicky Johnson, you may see Olari starting to shoot again from the outside. So, I mean, what do I know? But I'm just thinking, remember, she was a hell of a shooter in college. Yeah. But she was also given free reign in that Princeton team. So
yeah, this team has so many good pieces. They're just super young. So they may go through some growing pains, but DFS wise, you're gonna see a lot of them on winning GPP lineups often, I think. All right, Las Vegas Aces. I will let me just say who's new to the team, and then you can talk about who you like here. Chelsea Gray from the Sparks is now on the Aces, big time. Raquana Wilson from the Sparks now on the Aces, big time 3-point shooter. They're bringing back, of course, Asia Wilson, Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum, and Liz Campish, who opted out last season, are back. And obviously they have, Super 6 Woman of the Year, Dearica Hamby, who could be starting on every other roster. They're loaded, man. What are you doing? What do you think about the Aces?
I know. They're the best team in the league. I think without a doubt. And as I was listing players before we went on, I listed 6 players, at least 5 players that could start. I mean, of course, I could start on any team. You got I mean, AJ Wilson could be one of the best players. I mean, she's probably top 5 player now, right? WNBA. I mean, she was MVP last year, and she's young. She's a big scorer. She's a big rebounder. And now it's true, after you win the WNBA MVP, she's probably, her confidence is probably sky high. And now you got Cambridge coming in. My question is going to be, how are they going to gel together? Because I still think this is Liz Cambridge's team, and her ceiling is sky high. I mean, we've seen huge monster games from her. So she's probably the most exciting player in WNBA, I bet you. And I don't think she never won an MVP award. So I still think she's the team, and I'm just curious how she's gonna gel with Wilson, because, and after that you got Chelsea Gray, who could be just as good in most other teams. And I think Chelsea Gray's a top 15 player, right, in WNBA. I mean, she's a great point guard. She can pass. She's an elite scorer. She's been averaging 5 assists per game over the last 3 years, I guess, or so I remember she was on that when she was in LA. She was part of that big 3. So now she comes to the Vegas, and she's once again probably the 3rd best player on the team. And that's you mentioned Hamby,
McCautry.
Yeah, this team is loaded, man.
It's nuts.
Hamby, and who's I just drew a blank on Angel McCautry. So she's put together a hell of a career too. And then Kelsey Plum. So this team is loaded. This pretty freaking loaded.
Yeah, this is probably, they'll be able to run the best starting 5 in the league, and they're probably got the best 6 or 7, because they always bring Hamby off the bench, and she could start for pretty much anyone else in the league. And now you got Plum coming back, as you mentioned, off of her opt out
a couple years ago.
Yeah, and they're only really losing, Danielle Robinson, who, she was good, but they'll be fine. And then Kayla McBride, who that would normally really hurt a team, losing a player like that, but they're so loaded, they probably won't even notice. Yep. Now, 2 seasons ago, Asia did play with Cambridge. They both averaged right around 15, 16 points per game. Cambridge had 8 rebounds, Asia 6. So they definitely cannibalized each other. And now you have all these other mouths to feed, because Angel McCautry, she's kind of a player that wants her shots too. So, Coach Bill Lambier, we know he can handle it, but he's going to have another team that they're going to have to figure out, how to get people their touches, because Jackie Young is still growing. She's shown flashes. She was a high draft pick. And then you got somebody like Courtney Williams, who comes over with Chelsea Gray from LA, that she required a big number of shots when she was in LA. So you've got about 7 players here, that are going to require some touches. So we'll have to see how that pans out. The rest of their bench isn't very good, but if they run a 7 to 8 player rotation, it's still going to be really good for DFS. And it'll be just a situation where you take whoever's the cheapest on this team and roll with them, because I think, any one of these players outside of Cambridge and Asia can probably score similar fantasy points on any given night.
Bill Lambier said that Cambridge is actually in the best physical condition he's ever seen. She played in Australia last year, so she's coming back ready to roll. And then, even like Chelsea Gray, Courtney Williams. These guys, they picked up in a free agency. Gray's she's a veteran. She's been around. She's played 6-7 years in the league. So this team is stacked.
Yeah, Cambridge is, people don't realize, but she's 6'8" for a woman, and I'm not saying sexist or anything, because I watch this, but that's tall as hell for a woman. That's taller than a lot of men out there. So she towers over people on the court, and gets a lot of easy bunnies. And yeah, you got to think, watching Asia tear it up, be MVP, and get all this pub, that of course she was going to come back, fit, ready to go, ready to command that attention. And she's got a mean streak to her. She picks up technicals. She jaws, she talks trash. I like that. I like a player like that. So yeah, I'm definitely on board. Same with Kelsey Plum. Plum's got a lot of attitude too. I watched her play at Washington. She played college basically right down the street. And she's also got a little bit of an attitude. So this team is definitely one of those teams that they're going to get in people's heads and do some damage. And they have a lot of experience. They've gotten so close and made playoff runs and just gassed out at the end. As long as they stay healthy, I do think this team has WNBA title potential written all over them.
Yeah, I think they're a team to beat right now. I would rank them ahead of Seattle right now. I mean, when you got Kelsey Plum's not even going to be asked to put up big numbers on this team. You know what I mean? Kelsey Plum could go most other teams and be the star. So now that she's healthy.
Yeah. All right. Next team here is the LA Sparks. They will be without Candace Parker, their leading scorer from last year. They will be without Chelsea Gray. Gray and Parker both averaged over 14 points per game. Parker on 10 rebounds per game, Gray 5 assists. So that is a lot to lose for this team. They do obviously, bring back the Nneka Ogwuke and her sister who opted out last season, Shanae. They will both be back. They're both big time players. Shanae a little younger than Nneka. Is coming up on her 10th season. But they're both double machines. So they're without Candace there, they're going to really be able to be the alphas, get a lot of touches. I expect some big stats from them. They also have Christy Tolliver, who's coming over from the Mystics. She's been in the league forever, 12 years. She did opt out as well, but she's going to be back now. There's no Chelsea Gray, so expect Tolliver to be running the point from day one with them as long as she can, stay healthy and do that. They also are bringing over Erica Wheeler to kind of help with that, scoring void left by Gray. And excuse me, Candace Parker. You don't know who Erica Wheeler was. She has been on the Indiana Fever for several years. She opted out. I don't think she was hurt. She just straight opted out. She's a career 8.9 scorer, but she's much better than her stats show. She's an all-star game MVP. She's flashed big time scoring games in the past. Her last season that she played, she was a 10-5 player, 10 points, 5 assists. Her career high was just 2 seasons ago with 12 points per game. So I do think that she is going to have a really nice season in LA and a player to watch. She's probably going to be really underpriced to start with. So that's somebody to look at. They do bring over Amanda Zowie B to help fill up some of that front court. She spent the last 5-6 years with the New York Liberty. She's kind of a DFS darling. She always gets rostered heavily. She ends up being kind of a fade play, but she's a decent player. She's a career 6.7 rebound type of player. Last year she averaged 9 and 9. So she's really kind of, hasn't gotten a fair crack at the number 1 spot. She still won't, but she's only been playing about 18 to 20 minutes per game over her entire career. A lot of tread left on those tires, somebody who is going to help them in the front court. And then they re-signed Britney Sykes, who's somebody they brought over last season from the Dream. She's a big time player. And their rookie from last year, Tia Cooper, who we were all using. She was like another one of our high-end value plays, not quite to the level of Julia Almond, but she was putting up some big stats, especially later on in the season. She finished with 7 points per game, but that last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, she was averaging well over 18 fantasy points per game at a 4.5K price tag. So a lot of different pieces here to look at. They also they got a steal in the later rounds with Arella Garantes from Rutgers. A lot of people had her projected as a top 6 pick. They ended up getting her like in the mid-second. So I expect her to make the roster, learn under Tolliver and possibly be their future there. But again, a team that has, kind of had to change their identity a little bit, probably work around the Ogwuke sisters. They also have Simone Augustus, who's been in the league for 16 years, believe it or not. So they have experience on this team. It'll just be a matter of, having the chops to go toe-to-toe with the Aces, the Storm, the Sun, some of these other teams with younger players, but same amount of experience kind of thing. So what do you think about them?
Well, the first thing I think of now with Parker gone in Chicago, Chelsea Gray's gone to Vegas. This is definitely, now this is all Nika's team. And yeah, she's had some shitty numbers, but she had 13.3 points, 4.8 rebounds a game in the bubble. But you're going to see those numbers are going to go up. She's back to, contending for MVP, I think, again. A lot of people are down on her, but this is back to her team now. So I see definitely Nika being a great play in DFS. Shiny too. Shiny, Christy Tolliver opted out last year too, right? So
Yeah.
They I mean, when she was in the Mystics, I mean, she was averaging 6 assists per game and 13 points. So I could see her coming back. The one player I'm not kind of interested in too is Tia Cooper. So I think she was kind of a big fan favorite there, and she led the team second unit. But I think she's gonna be asked to do a little bit more this year, especially with Chelsea Gray gone. So all I've seen is she signed the training camp contract, but I really don't think that she has much competition there. So I'm assuming she's going to make the team. But I see her as a nice little value play, Cooper, because I can see her taking over Chelsea Gray's role. But this is Nika's team now, so you're going to see a definitely different season from her this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, Cooper is really good. She's definitely going to take a step forward. And then the draft picks that they took, Jasmine Walker out of Alabama, who's a forward, somebody who's going to be a project player learning behind the NECA. They also took Stephanie Watts at 10, which was a surprise for people. But like I said, they ended up getting Garantes from Rutgers, who I do think is going to be somebody who finds her way into the rotation. She's way too good to not play. So it'll be interesting to see how the Sparks integrate her. Just a few teams left. This is good stuff, though. Minnesota Lynx. They have made some changes as well. They're adding, I'll just go through it real quick and then get your take. They're adding Natalie Anchanwa, previously with the Fever. That's a nice add for them. They're also adding Kayla McBride from the Aces. We just mentioned she was a 13-point scorer, kind of a 3-point sniper. She's going to do really well. And then they also added Ariel Powers, who has been in the league 5 years. Doesn't seem like it, but she's kind of got future star written all over her too. They ended up having to pay her a pretty decent chunk. So the Mystics couldn't, keep her. But she is coming off a season with the Mystics. She only played in 6 games. But in that 6 games, she suffered an injury. She had 16 points per game, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. She was shooting 54% from the field, so big time there, 35% from long range. The prior year in 30 games, she averaged 12 points. So you see the maturation and those numbers going up. Minnesota brought her in to use her. So it'll be interesting to see how they use her with the existing players. Obviously, Sylvia Fowles, who's been in the league for a long time. She's kind of, on the way down, but still adequate. Nafisa Collier, who's probably my favorite player in the league. I always talk about Collier. I'm always rostering her. She's entering year 3. This is typically when you see players make that next step to superstardom. Rookie of the year, Crystal Dangerfield, is in her 2nd year. She's a phenomenal player. Damiris Dantes is very much slept on. She can knock down the 3, rebound with the best of them. They have some really nice pieces here as well. I think people are going to probably sleep on them, but the additions of McBride, Ariel Powers, and Anchanwa they can't be understated, because in the past the Lynx have had depth issues of their own, similar to the Sun, not quite as bad, but when they took out their starters or they had to go to the bench, foul trouble, whatever, there was a clear drop off in production each and every time. They won't have that anymore now that they've added 3 players who can all, are capable of starting. I would expect Powers to start probably around with Falls, Collier, and Dangerfield, those 4. And then I don't know if Dantes will continue to start. I would think McBride probably takes the starting spot, but we'll see how that goes. Then they'll be able to bring off the bench a player like Anchanwa, and then, either McBride or Dantes, who are both really good. And then the rookie that they drafted, Renee Davis out of Tennessee, she's probably not going to play a lot, but she won't have to right away. And then they also bring back Bridget Carlton, who she had some games last year. She put up a couple 25s randomly, so she's got game as well. And then Rachel Banham, who's a bit of a 3-point sniper. So it's definitely a good team with the 3 new players. They're tough. They're well coached. For my money, they probably have one of, if not the best coach in the WNBA. She has a couple titles under her belt. But this addition of Powers has me really excited for the roster. So what do you think about this squad here?
Yep, 2 things. I think there's Renea Davis, and she was projected as a lottery pick, and she fell right in their laps. And everything I was reading earlier before we went on is Cheryl Reed and them, they love her. And she's a defensive player, but she also, the league is shifting for more probably a perimeter heavy offense, and she gives that kind of versatility. Especially a lot of length. She's 6'2". She can switch between a guard and forward. And I'm just curious how much she's going to play. Because like you said, she doesn't need to play. But everything I'm reading here, she attacks the game like a big, but she's got the finesse of a guard forward, which is something like Cheryl Reeves loves that. And they're saying they couldn't believe that she fell in their laps. So I'm not sure she's much of a shooter, but man, she could fit right. She could fit in right in this team with Collier and Fowles, and you already mentioned her, but I think my favorite player is Ariel Powers too, because they would never offer that kind of salary, and they traded Odyssey Sims, which they kind of got the bad end of that deal because they had to guarantee Powers that money. So they would have done all that if Cheryl Reed didn't have big plans for Powers this year. And remember, she was putting up career highs last year before she went down with that. What was her injury? I remember she went down for the year. Was her knee? I can't remember what her injury was now, but she was putting up big numbers last year before she went down.
Yeah, in those first 6 games, she was putting up huge. It was some sort of severe hamstring injury, torn hamstring, and then it didn't heal right, if I remember correctly. Look it up. Yeah, hamstring injury that she sidelined with, probably not coming back. Yeah, it happened on August 7th, so like later in the season. So she just sat it out. There were some structural issues, is what it says.
And I'm thinking in DFS the first couple weeks, you're going to see Ariel Powers really cheap, and a lot of people are probably going to pass her over that name. So Ariel Powers is going to be a sneaky name for DFS. Just like, I mean, I think Fowles is too. I mean, I think Fowles is the top 20 player in the league. Collier definitely is going to be a top 10, but I'd really like this Ariel Powers a lot.
Yeah, and the money that we mentioned the contract, I just looked it up. The Powers is getting the veteran max, which is $190,550, and yep. I know that's not a lot for because we get these NBA contracts. That is a lot in WNBA. So she's getting the max, and it looks like Kayla McBride is getting it. So they're gonna probably have to play McBride too and bring Dantas off the bench. So they're putting a lot of money in these players because they want that taste of a title again. You know, they've got the pieces. Fowles has probably only got a couple of years left. She's like I said, her 14th season. You got Collier, Dangerfield, key young players. Now you got these guys with Powers and McBride with experience in the playoffs. Powers has championship experience from her time with the Mystics. They're a good team. I'm definitely excited. And then even the Enchanwa addition is pretty sneaky because with the Fever last year, she actually put up pretty decent stats. Pull those up real quick. 7 and 5. So, off the bench, that's pretty productive. If you can get somebody who's going to give you 7-8 points, 5-6 rebounds, that's going to be key. So they needed a bench. They went out and they got bench help. They should be really good. Losing Sims, feels like it would hurt, but I think they'll be okay. All right. Phoenix Mercury. They have the immortal one, Diana Taurasi, entering season number 17. She's been, wow. I can't believe it's almost been 20 years, man. I remember when she was at UConn, bro. Yep. I remember her and Sue Bird at UConn, and now they're both coming up on 20 seasons. That's just nuts. Still doing her thing. She's been suffering injuries a lot later on in her career here, so I don't know how much more she'll have, in her, but they have the pieces here. Brittany Griner is back. Skylar Diggins-Smith is back, who was a big addition for them. Really like Skylar Diggins-Smith again this year. She's kind of she's, I don't want to say underrated, but she's kind of almost underrated, I feel like, because people sleep on her a lot, even though she averaged last year 17 points, 4.5 assists. She's a big time player, and she did really well for them. Griner bowed out early, only played 12 games last season. She should be back, ready to go. They lose Shatori Walker Kimbrough, who was a key bench piece for them. But pretty much everyone who, contributed to this team is back. Bria Hartley, who is somebody to watch. She's entering her 8th season. She averaged 15 points per game last year. She just began to start, but then she got hurt and missed the rest of the season. She played 13 games, but I mean, she was really trending up, and fantasy-wise, she was putting up over 28 fantasy points per game during the last week before she went out with an injury. So if she can come back from that and play as the 3rd, 4th fiddle after Taurasi and Diggins-Smith, Griner, whatever, she can still be a really good, valuable player. So that's another one to look at that may come into it a little bit, priced down. They do add Kia Nurse from the Liberty. She's out of UConn, her 4th season. They have high hopes for her becoming, kind of the heir apparent to Taurasi eventually. She does have big time upside, so I like her. I'm a really big fan of Brianna Turner. This will be her 3rd season out of Notre Dame. They were hurt. They had so many people out. Griner left. Hartley was hurt, Taurasi was hurt on and off. So they also had issues with their depth. So Brianna Turner was thrust into big minutes. She averaged career high almost 28 minutes. She ended up averaging 7 points, 9 rebounds, but I don't know if you remember, she was putting up 35, 38 fantasy points there near the end, and she was like 6K. She ended up being overpriced by the end of the season, but for a while there, we had like a 2-week period where she was giving us 30 plus at 6K regularly, and we were smashing with her. So I think she's growing. If Griner doesn't have whatever personal issues were going on before under control, I'm fine with Turner stepping in there. I think they're fine with her too, and seeing what she can bring. The rest of their rookies and bench pieces like Sierra Burdick, who they had from Vegas, Sophie Cunningham, who she's a decent shooter. Shea Petty's there from the Mystics. Alana Smith. There's some pieces here, but nobody that I can confidently sit here and be like, oh yeah, this player. Maybe a Megan Walker, who's in her second year out of UConn.
UConn, right?
About her. Yeah. But it's really just the main pieces, but somebody's going to have to step up. And it's tough because the rosters aren't finalized just yet. So I don't want to be like, it's going to be her and then have her get cut, because some good players are getting cut, but somebody outside of the Taurasi, Diggin Smith, Griner, Hartley group is really going to step up and become a DFS option this year out of necessity. Maybe it's Kia Vaughn, but she's been in the league for almost 12 years. Kia Vaughn had to come on strong last year because Griner was out. So somebody outside of that group is going to do well. So we'll just have to wait and see. Alana Smith, though, is on their team, third year out of Stanford. She's another player that they've been talking about as potentially being strong for them. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Starting lineups are going to be everything, man. That's really encourage you guys, just like with college basketball and any other sport. We'll be in the Discord talking up starting lineups. That's really what we want to stick with, at least the first 2 or 3 slates. What do you think, Mercury and the immortal Diana Taurasi, who is not calling it quits just yet?
Yeah, this is kind of you're right. This is kind of a weird team, though. But I kind of do like Megan Walker from UConn. I don't think she's not any kind of centerpiece, but I think that was a nice little pickup, though, that they got. I mean, picking her and getting her and Kia, and I think Kia's going to have a much better year this year because she's actually, I think she's surrounded by better players. So she shot 27.3% last year. I mean, that's by far a career low. And plus she had injuries nagging her all year. So I just think this is a great start for her, kind of a redo. Now she's playing beside, when you're playing beside Dana Taurasi and shit, it's going to definitely up your game, because we saw what everybody thought Taurasi was done in 2019. She averaged like 4 points a game, and she took over last year. I mean, she's a GOAT. She was average. I mean, she was second team, all in WNBA second team. And that just makes Skylar Diggins Smith better. And I think Diggins Smith's my favorite player on their team. She's elite passer, elite scorer. So when you got, and she's like at the top of her game right now, I think. And when you're playing alongside Dana Taurasi, it's just going to make you even better. And you can learn. There's a ton of talent in this roster. I just don't know where it's going to go. Like I said, Brittany Griner's got her problems. Supposedly she's better now. She had some issues in a bubble, and I just read she went through a lot of counseling and stuff and dealt with that. So they say she's ready to go, because when she's on her game, man, she's
unguardable down low when she's on.
She's a monster, man. She could smash. So and that's a problem. She came in. I do feel bad. She came in with so much hype, and she's been overshadowed by EDD. So pretty much her whole career. And a lot of people take for granted how good of a player she is. When she's on, she's on. So it's good to see her back. And like everything I read is, she's back mentally in good shape. So it's just a good team. But it's like, I don't know. I don't see them as like a top 5 team, right now. I could see them like a 5, maybe like a 6, 7, 8 team right now in that league, like middle of the road, I guess. They could break down. Trousey could break down. Griner breaks down. Next, Kia Hurst and hitting shots, and it's all on Diggins Smith's shoulders, and who knows what's gonna happen there.
Yeah, I think as is, they'll probably, they'll be like that pesky 5 or 6 seed. But yeah, if they have injuries again, they're gonna be hard pressed to produce. They did get that nice production from Kia Vaughn and Brianna Turner late, but yeah, they can't be relying too heavily on that again. They got to try to stay healthy.
Exactly.
All right, and the Seattle Storm wrapping up with the last team here. Their current roster is it's not anywhere close to what it's going to end up being. They have a lot of players in training camp. They've got cuts to make. We do know, obviously Sue Bird's back for her 18th season. Another one like Tarasi, she's been around forever. She continues to get hurt every season. She's really become more of just a facilitator, a role model, a leader for the team. She's really been able to coach up and help Jordan Canada with her maturation. I really like Jordan Canada out of UCLA. This is her 4th season. I'm looking for Canada to really step forward. When Sue Bird was out and she got injured, opted out, and had some other stuff going on over the last couple of seasons, every time Canada stepped in for her, she's produced well. People don't really give Canada that recognition because her career numbers are like, she's a 7-point game scorer, 3 rebounds, whatever. But if you look deeper and see the stats she put up without Bird, it's much more productive. And there was a time where she was putting up 25 fantasy points per game without Sue Bird 2 seasons ago when she was hurt. So I do really like Canada. I believe in her. I want her to play, and Sue Bird to maybe start taking a little bit of a back seat and really manage her minutes. There's really no reason for Sue Bird to have to be able to play 30 plus minutes. They are losing Alicia Clark. Didn't even mention that. I forgot with the Mystics, but she's not going to play. Alicia Clark's hurt. She tore an ACL, so she did sign a big deal with the Mystics, but she's hurt, so she's not going to play. That's why she didn't show on the active roster. One of the best defensive players in the country. That's going to hurt the Storm, obviously. Natasha Howard, who they traded away, we just talked about her, but they do bring in some pieces, and it's going to be interesting. This is 16th season now for Candace Dupree, who they brought in out of the Fever. Dupree's a career 14.4 game scorer, 6.6 rebounds. She just last season, she averaged 12.5 points and 6 rebounds in her 14th season. So she's still a really productive player, and she's a career 50% shooter from the field. She's a kind of a dead eye mid-range shooter, which I know the mid-range game is kind of dying now, but the Storm can definitely use her. So I'm actually pretty excited about her. I think she'll start right away. And then Katie Lou Samuelson is a person they traded for. This is actually the 3rd team in 3 years for Katie Lou. She started with Chicago, then she was with Dallas. She's killing it in Europe. She just had a really good season in Europe. There's a lot of hype. The Storm invested a lot in her in this trade and picks. They gave away the pick, the number 1 pick they acquired from the Liberty for trading Howard. They gave it away for Katie Lou Samuelson. So they believe in her. It was a bit of a head scratcher for me at first. I like her game. She hasn't shown it yet. This will be somebody who comes into the season probably priced for $4.5K, may even start from day one. Katie Lou Samuelson, somebody to keep an eye on. And then they also traded for Micaiah Herbert-Harrigan out of from Minnesota. Another player that the stats aren't going to look that great. She did play 21 games last season, but somebody that they're expecting to contribute right away. They also traded their draft pick from the 1st round that they got late for Kennedy Burke out of the Indiana Fever. Kennedy Burke fits. At first, I didn't like the trade, but she fits what the Storm are trying to do. She'll kind of take that 3-point gunner role off the bench from Sammy Whitcomb. She did average 7 points per game last year. She shot right around 32% from long range. Not great, but she has a career of 33%. She's also shot 53% on her 2-point field goals. She got to the rack a lot, and this is season 3 for her. So still young enough to see, maybe she turns a corner. Joel Lloyd, a star. She's going to be doing a lot for this team. Obviously, Brianna Stewart she was the one on the cover photo and the thumbnail for this show. Brianna Stewart, this is only her 5th year, man. She's not ready to give up the title of the best player in the WNBA just yet. She's over in EuroLeague, killing it. She was a EuroLeague MVP over there, and leading the Storm to another title just this past season. They also picked up in camp, kind of out of she was with the Aces last year, Tamira Young, maybe a little bit of a sneakier pickup off the bench, but there's lots of pieces here. And then Neziat Magbouor out of Australia in year 2. She was another value play for us that we used often. She was always near min price. She ended up scoring 6.5 points per game, right around 3 rebounds per game. She only played like 15 minutes a game, but she would consistently put up 4x. If she gets more numbers or minutes this season with no Natasha Howard around, I could see Magbouor being one of those, sneakier plays that ends up being, a big time producer, 5K type of player that nobody else is on. So the Storm have a lot of finagling to do with their lineup and some soul searching to do with, who they cut, but you can't really doubt them. They've won 3 titles now, 2, within the last few years. I tend to defer to the moves they make, even though some of them kind of look weird on paper. So they're putting a lot of faith in Katie Lou Samuelson, though. What do you think about their current roster?
Yeah, I mean, of course, Stewart or whatever. I mean, Jewel Boyd's one of my favorite players in WNBA. I think this is going to be like, this is her special year. She's at that age where she's 27. She knows the league. She's a star. And Samuelson was the other name I had written down, and I don't need to repeat everything you said, but I was thinking the same thing. I was kind of a head scratcher for me too when they gave up that 2021 first round pick. They know something we don't, because obviously she was made the all first team, EuroLeague women's first team. They're saying she's been playing the best basketball of her career. I mean, 3 teams in 3 years. So they obviously have some kind of confidence in her ability. They wouldn't have gave up all that for her. So I think you hit it right on a button. She's probably gonna be a player we're gonna see the first few days for, $4.5, $4,600. And I'm definitely gonna probably jump on her because they're gonna play her too. They didn't give up that first round pick, and to have Samuelson sit on the bench. So I like that. May be one of my, I'm not sure if it's a sneaky call. I mean, that people don't know who she is, but I don't think people are gonna play her. So she might fit right in there, with Lloyd. So, and and you also said too, don't sleep on Jordan Canada either. I mean, she's, they're world-class players on both ends of the court. So it's a good team. This Seattle team's always been such a good team. They're going to be a top 2-3 team in the league, and they're going to find ways to win. I'm just really interested how Katie Lou Samuelson's going to pan out this year.
Yeah, because I think that the Chicago got her, and then they did a kind of a weird trade, and Dallas got her, and she played really well. And she's another UConn girl, so I'm sure she played well in college, and she has that upside. And I just looked up at her EuroLeague stats. She averaged 15.5 points per game, 5 rebounds, a couple of assists. So if she puts up those kind of numbers this year on the Storm, they'll be right back in the title game, because they got Stewart and Lloyd, who are both super good and top end players. If they get that sort of production out of Samuelson, or even Harrigan, well, those are the two I'm looking at the most, because they gave up a lot of draft capital and assets for Katie Lou and Micaiah Herbert Harrigan. So those are the two I'm going to be watching the most. But I like this Candace Dupree signing. I think she'll help alleviate some of the defense loss from Clark and some of the offense loss from Howard. So
what do you think about this Ezzy Magbegger? I mean, you think this is gonna be a breakout season for her? I mean, she's young.
Potentially. I like her, man, because she was the value play for us a lot last year.
Yeah.
So if she gets the minutes,
start the season, right? She's overseas.
Yeah, exactly. And Russell, Mercedes is kind of like, I want her to get out of the way anyways, like Mercedes, but I want Magbegor to play more. And if she gets like 25 minutes or something like that, she's definitely going to smash. She was consistently putting up 4x or higher at like a near min price tag in 15 minutes. She was getting like 5 rebounds, 10 points almost all the time. They just weren't getting the minutes for her because they didn't have them available.
Sneaky play there. So that could be another one to look at for the first week.
Yeah, they got to do some cuts. Their roster has they're over by like 5, looking at their current training camp roster. So they have some cuts to make here. But there are a couple of rookies they got, like India Jones out of Texas A&M. They were talking her up quite a bit. Somebody they liked. Brittany Brown out of Florida State. They added Stephanie Talbot, and that's who they swapped in that deal for. Was it Sammy Whitcomb? Talbot's a big 3-point shooter from over in Australia. So if she comes over and plays, she'll be good. But they have a nice roster. I don't think that they'll be losing quite as much as they think. Howard doesn't play that well with Stewart. Like, she does defensively, but her production, she didn't play well with other stars. She was clearly better without Stewart. So I don't know if that loss will be quite as big. The one I'm really worried about is no Alicia Clark, because of how she could lock down the opposing team's best player. I'm a little worried about that, but the Storm have the offense to run with anybody. And they had, championship experience, coaching staff. It's just a really good franchise. So Storm will be on our rosters a lot. Brianna Stewart's the player that you just, you end up paying that $9K, $10K salary tag and moving on, because she puts up 50. And it feels bad when you're on the other end of that, when she puts up 50, 60 fantasy points and you didn't roster. All right, so that's pretty much it. WNBA preview show. Hopefully you guys stuck it out with us, or you're listening on demand. We appreciate it. Some good info there. As rosters finalized, we'll have some articles coming up when that first DFS slate drops.
No.
We'll definitely do a show and
The first
have
slate,
some combo shows like you said with MLB.
The first slate is the 14th, which is next Friday. No, I didn't know. Is that going to be a showdown slate, or is there more than one game that night? I didn't even look that up here. I'm trying to look it up now.
Let's see.
Is that going to be a now I'm seeing, of course, I'm seeing.
So there should be, I think it's a bigger, so it's a 4-game slate.
Oh, yeah, 4 games.
Friday.
Cool.
And then it's going to go smaller, like Saturdays too. It's typically going to be 3-game slates, but they did make an extra game on that Friday, which will be nice. I suspect since it's 4-gamer, the contest will be higher payouts. But then on like you see the following Tuesday, it's a 3-gamer, and then so it's going to be that kind of format where it'll be like a 3-game, 2-game, and then a showdown slate. I think once a week, and then because they didn't get any break, like they only had like 2-day breaks, and their girls were burning out tough. So I think they're going to be more spaced out this year with their breaks. They need to expand. That's at the end of the day, they need to expand that league. But yeah, the first slate will be 4 games, and some good matchups. Fever versus Liberty, Sun versus Dream, Mercury Lynx, and the Wings versus Sparks. So there'll be some good options. It'll be interesting to see the pricing when it comes out. I think we can take advantage of some mispricing early on.
That's a nice opening slate though. So next Friday night, looks like 7 o'clock's first game, the Fever and the Liberty. So cool.
Yeah, maybe I'll be able to get on with you and we can do like a post show or even the night before or something. So appreciate it, man. Definitely. Felt good. It felt like we hadn't even taken a break. I'm excited to get back into it. So yeah, was it the 35? We had the deal with $35. You said it was for 6 months. Definitely take advantage of that. And then you also have MLB stuff going on tomorrow. Why don't you tell everybody about that one more time before we head out?
Yeah, tomorrow's freebie Friday. Somebody's going to get a free subscription for a month at YFC. Whoever's on the chat listening, we'll pick a name. Also, don't forget Prize Picks, code YFC. And I just remember last year, Prize Picks was really, really good to us with WNBA. So we can mention some of those as the season opens. And I think that is it. Thanks a lot to John Maffa, our producer. Good job again, John. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice to be back. You'll be seeing a lot of us now in the future, next couple weeks.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. I know it was a long one, but it was a preview. The shows that we typically do for WNBA will be, 30 minutes or less typically. So I appreciate everybody. Thanks, Pete, as always. You're the grinder of the slate, man. I give it to you for not taking any days off. Go rest up, and we'll see you guys here in the next few days for the first slate. Thanks, everyone.
Good luck. Deuces.